Kathleen. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Jack Altman, and I organize the events for Retirement Boot Camp for the library. And this is, as she said, part of the Tech Club series that we have monthly. We've reached out this month beyond our normal tech group within the library to get some expertise on a great subject, artificial intelligence, which from the number of people who are joining is something I think everybody is interested in learning about or learning more about. So our guest this week is Doug Ward. He's a cultural historian and former New York Times editor. He teaches courses in pedagogy, data, visualization, digital content strategy, and editing. And he's also the associate director of the Center for Teaching Excellence at KU. He received his bachelor's from K-State, his master's from KU, and his doctorate from the University of Maryland. He's led the development of a master's degree program in digital content strategy, and a digital literacy course known as Infomania. At the Center for Teaching Excellence, he works with faculty in areas like flexible and online teaching, data analytics, use of technology to improve student engagement, and innovating teaching practices. He was the Scripps Howard Foundation Journalism and Mass Communication Teacher of the Year in 2011, and is recipient of the Bankston Faculty Mentor Award and Kadich Award for Creativity, among other awards, and the author of several books. His field is journalism and his specialty is technology. So we're hoping he will be able to put this into plain language that you and I will understand.
I will do my best.
Right. So knowing not exactly where he stands on this issue, I will introduce you to him, and he can tell us whether he sees AI as the innovation of the future or whether HAL is going to take over the spaceship in 2005 Space Odyssey. So, Dr. Ward, thank you.
If you would like, I didn't put that article on there. I do have another one where I have an article about HAL that I wrote a few weeks ago. Well, thank you. And I will try to explain it. I'm not a computer scientist. I mean, I'm a journalist and a teacher, and I do all kinds of different things, but I have been working in technology for a lot of years because I think that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that my students knew. As I was working, technology was becoming more and more important in whatever field that they went into. And I try to prepare my students the best I can for technology. And funny thing, in early December, I showed my students ChatGPT and another tool and said, look at what it can do. If it can do this, what is it that you will be doing? And they were sort of agog at it, and then they kind of shook it off. And then early this semester, I got a email from a student in that class that, now, what program was that you showed us that does all that writing? And so I wrote back and shared that with her. So artificial intelligence, and what I will do, I don't like to just talk, but I will, and this is a subject that I'm really interested in, so I can talk for a long time, but please don't feel free to interrupt at any time or to ask questions or whatever, because I can go in a lot of different directions. What I want to do is to show you some tools. I asked Jack, where do you think people are on this? Do they know about it? Have they seen it in action? And he said, well, my nephew is Sam Altman, who created ChatGPT, and I haven't even used it. So I said, okay, then. So what I'm planning to do is to show you some tools, some AI tools, and to talk through those and just to kind of give you a sense of what they can do. And I think the answer to Jack's question is, where do I stand on things? The answer is yes. I mean, I think, I'm looking at it that there are a lot of possibilities with this, and a lot of things that we have to keep in mind that are problematic. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I delved into this. at the beginning of the year is that many of our instructors were suddenly saying, wait a minute, if this program can write as well as I can, or can write as well as my students can, what do I do about assignments? And that's what we have been thinking through. And that's a lot of what I try to do with faculty is work through those kinds of questions and what can you do with this? How might you use it? Because I think the students are going to be expected to know how to use this now. There are a lot of really good jobs right now for people who can do things like prompting, which is basically being able to talk to the AI in language that it gives, it can, I'd say, understand. I mean, I will use terms like understand. It doesn't understand. I mean, the technology does not understand. It is not sentient. And that's one of the things that's hard to grasp. And I think you have to understand it or have to be thinking about that when you're using it, because it has a personality. It can take on I've had it be really testy with me when I ask it the wrong questions. It can be very friendly. It can be helpful. I mean, it has a lot of different things that's available with it. And as some of this has come out, the technology companies have worked at putting what they call guardrails on it, so it doesn't take on a mean personality or to go into really weird areas. So let me show you. I will see if I can get into here. And we were testing this beforehand, so I hope it works for everybody. I'm going to share my screen and we'll see. If not, then I have other things that I can do. So this is ChatGPT. And I think before I even start, AI has been in development for decades. And my guess is that you're using AI already and don't even know it. If you use a computer, you're using some form of AI. If you're using a smartphone, you're using some form of AI. It's everywhere. It's just that it's often in the background. And why we're talking about this now is that a company called OpenAI released this program called ChatGPT in November, late November. It suddenly had a personality. It interacted in ways that seemed human. And for the first time, many people could interact with AI in ways that seemed futuristic. And this OpenAI, I haven't seen the latest data on it, but after 3 months of use, ChatGPT had the largest audience of any sort of media or technology at that point in time after 3 months. I mean, it's just huge because it was made available free, which I think was brilliant, but also a little bit scary because people were not sure what to make of it. So here it is. I mean, and I have a slightly different version of it because ChatGPT is trained, and I have in my hand, and I talk about some of these things. What the AI does, this is actually called a large language model. It has basically taken everything from the internet up to 2021, put it in a database, and then through algorithms or programming, it looks at the kinds of word patterns that people use. Based on that, it makes predictions about what it needs to say, and that's how it responds to the questions that you ask it or the information that you put into it. And it's all natural language. So I'll try something. Kathleen was talking earlier about something that the director does, and I was thinking about something else. So I'm just going to say, you are an expert on public libraries. Write a 400 word article about the 3 most important things that libraries must consider for patrons in the next 10 years. I don't know, something like that. Right, for a general audience. I could spell. Avoid jargon. And there we go. We'll see what it did. That's what I was afraid. Sometimes it doesn't work, and I may go to another one because let's try again. It sometimes, there's just so many people using it that it blips out like that. I'm gonna try one more time. I'm going to copy it just in case. So if it goes out again, I've got it for another one. Okay, let's try it. Okay, there we go. So I now have 400 words about the future of public libraries. So now I could go back to it and I could say, all right, community care. So let's say if I want to say about community care. I can follow up with it. And now it's going into more depth about that. This is what terrifies faculty. Because if students can go to this and have it write this kind of material, what do they need to do for essays and things like that? Now, a couple of things. One is that this is a great starting point. And I mean, from my standpoint, this can be really helpful when you're writing. One of the hardest things with writing is just starting. You can throw ideas into this and get back things that you can now start, and you're not looking at the blank page. For people with disabilities, this is especially helpful. There's an article a few weeks ago about someone who has ADHD, who was saying, this is exactly what I need because it's a very minimal interface. I'm not distracted by it. I can ask questions and it gives me back information that I can start with to do my own writing. And I feel like I don't have to have a lot of tabs open. I can keep going on it. And it's been very helpful to me. I have my ChatGPT is going to be a little bit different from yours because I have a plugin connected to it because it has web access. So it's going to be a little bit different. ChatGPT right now on its own does not have web access. It was trained on the internet up through 2021. So if you're trying to get something new out of ChatGPT, it may or may not give you something valid or useful. Now, Microsoft has been working hand in hand with ChatGPT or with OpenAI. And let me go to Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine, which now has a chat platform. And I'm going to type the same thing in there. What's interesting is that every time you can ask it the same question over and over, and you're going to get something slightly different. That's one of the things that's challenging about it, that in terms of checking on, is this written by AI? After you've worked with a lot of AI language or seeing what it can do, you start to see some patterns in it. What it's doing is, again, it's taking the most common patterns that it is finding in the language that people have used online and writing in that format based on what you ask it. So let's see what I get here. My guess is it's going to come up with something slightly different. But a lot of the information is going to be similar. That's interesting. This is much more similar than I would have expected, although this was coming up and putting it in a slightly different format in terms of community engagement, equity and inclusion. And again, I could keep asking it questions based on any of this and have it extend and provide more information to provide sources for it, and it will do a pretty good job. A few things though, AI makes things up. So that's where the human part of it come in. It will make things up out of whole cloth, and it will conflate sources and create a new source that may be pieces of 3 different ones. It will just make something up if you ask it a question in the right way is what I'm saying there, but prompted in a way that you're asking it to respond in a particular way. It will take on personas. It will write in particular ways. And so you have to be careful with it. It's certainly not perfect. It looks like it's just so fluid. Look at this, you get this out, and isn't it wonderful? But you really have to be careful with it. And I did a session a couple of weeks ago with the library staff at KU. And one of the things they were saying is, this isn't that much different from what we have to do now. We have to be evaluating information all the time. As librarians, we're looking at this information. Where did it come from? Is it valid? Is it true? How do we know? What other things can we check it against? What kind of perspective does it have? What else is out there that we need to provide for it? It's just in a different form. And it's interesting that Bing Chat really kind of takes that format. It takes the search engine and then adds the chat function to it in ways that I was already asking questions of the chat before the chat function was there. And that's the way a lot of things are indexed online anyway, is in the form of questions. So that can be really helpful. Bing is one that got really testy with me. I got early access to it, and I was prompting it, asking it about its code name, which when Microsoft created it, it had a code name Sydney. And I had been reading about that. So I said, "Are you Sydney?" And it came back and it said, "Well, no, why do you ask that?" And I said, "Well, I'd been reading and I thought that was your name was Sydney." "No, I am Bing Chat. I am here to answer questions. What would you like to ask? What would you like me to answer?" And I said, "Well, I'd like you to talk more about Sydney. If you continue to ask questions like that, I will end this conversation." I mean, it was taking on this angry persona that was really, really interesting. Now, Microsoft has started to put a throttle on it. So it started off, it put a 5-question limit on it. What happens with AI, if you keep delving deeper and deeper and deeper into it, you can kind of confuse it. And so that's when it starts taking on some of these odd personas. And so Microsoft put a 5-question limit on it before you had to start over. Now it's up to 20, which is interesting. I'm not sure what else they've done. Jack, you look like you need to ask a question.
There's a couple questions, and I think we might as well throw them in now. One of them is, does plagiarism factor into any of this? In other words, does it plagiarize? Is what I assume they're asking. And
it really doesn't. It really does not plagiarize. I mean, you can put this in a plagiarism detector. It will not flag it for plagiarism. Now, if you want to look at it in another way, is it what I keep asking or talking with faculty about, is it plagiarism if a student turns this in? No. Is it academically honest? No. Is this something that the student did themselves? No.
Right.
If you use it as a basis for your research or to get you going, that's perfectly fine. But then what did you do to make it your own? I mean, that's a complicated question because there have been people who have been, well, one complaining, but also filing lawsuits over this because they were saying that the companies, OpenAI and Microsoft and Google and Facebook have used work without permission. That what all of this is based on is anything that has been posted online. So they have gone and scoured the internet and scraped it. It's called scraping, where you're pulling down information from online and then analyzing it, and then it creates something new. Now, I think, is that fair use? I think that's the question right now. I don't know. A lot of people will say no. Others will say, well, it's online. It's not taking it and using your work word for word, or taking the image of yours and using it whole cloth. But at the same time, it's gathering your style of writing and melding it with others and making that available through this chat platform.
It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that unlike ChatGPT, Bing's version of it actually shows to some degree source material. I mean, you still have to dig to see what the source is.
Yeah.
But on the plagiarism side or the truth side, with Bing, you have the option to dig down into the source just like you would in Facebook. It may take some time to check all that. Am I correct?
Yes. And let's see what I can get out of it. It will do a better job generally of citing. I've had pretty good luck with it. And as it does that, it will summarize for you. And then you can see down here, here are the sources it is drawn from. Some of them it's cited, and then it's giving some other material down there. So yes, and I think you can ask it to cite. It often won't. I mean, it has this omniscient tone to it often. And if you don't ask it, where are you getting this information? And I did this with ChatGPT. I had a really long conversation with ChatGPT about where are you getting your sources? What are your biases? And it would just say things like, well, I have no biases. I'm just a chat bot that gathers information and provides answers. And I said, no. You're created by human beings, and human beings have biases. What are their biases? And it came back and said, well, I don't know what the biases are. Yes, every human have biases, but I don't have biases. I'm just technology. And so therefore I can't have any biases. So I went on and on and on like that, but it does have a lot of biases. If you look at the internet, and I've done some writing about this, and others have too. I mean, if you pull from the internet, it's primarily more of a male perspective, white perspective, American perspective. All of that creates a sense of what you're seeing and what it produces. I think as it expands, some of those biases should fade, or I hope that they fade. But right now, it's really mimicking, I would say, what you're seeing online. That's a pretty good way to describe what it does. Go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
No, please. John has a statement or a thing that he added to it, and I think it's worthy. I think the more you know about the subject you are asking about, the less likely you will be vulnerable to misinformation.
That's
so
right.
I think it's like a lot of things. And I would add to that, depending on your bias, how believable anything is, because it speaks to your bias one way or the other, or it doesn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to go back here. If you look at how it's doing, I said to write an article. And if you start looking at it and really looking closely at the language, public libraries are an important resource for communities. Okay. I mean, it's pretty hard to disagree with that. but there's really nothing new about that. They provide access to information technology and educational resources. Okay. In the next 10 years, they need to consider several things. Yes, we all need to consider several things. That's the kind of generalities that you find in the AI written work that you start to pick up on after a while. The New York Times did something, I think at the end of December, that was really interesting. It has an interactive feature where you can say, was this written by a fourth grader, a 10th grader, and a 12th grader, or was it written by the AI? And you can go in and test yourself on that. And it's you can see a lot of the things that, okay, these students are not going to know this sort of language, are not going to use this sort of language. And really, that's the same thing here that we tell professors, that you are your best gauge against any kind of misuse of this, because you know how your students write. You know the form that they write in. You know how they do this. So that's it often pops up. You can see it. That's often before I even check anything in terms of plagiarism. I can usually see, okay, this is not the way the student usually writes. And then I can start doing some checking. And it usually is, yes, that's exactly right. I'm going to skip over to something here. Let me do this. This is another one. It's another way of using the tool. And this is another tool. This is called MapDeduce. You could do probably the same thing in ChatGPT. What this is you can load PDFs onto the site and then ask it questions. It will summarize for you. I think that's one of the really nice things about AI right now is there's so much information out there. Being able to summarize something to see, do I want to go deeper into this, is really helpful. So then I could go and say, I don't know, let's see what, I don't know. I don't know whether he said anything. I loaded up Barack Obama's first State of the Union. Now, I can ask questions of it. The president said that they will wield technology's wonders to raise healthcare's quality and lower its cost. Okay, so I could dig something in there. So it says that sounds like that's the only reference to technology was in relation to healthcare. So I could keep asking questions of it if I wanted to. And I did this yesterday. We had applications to an event that we sponsor, and it had, I think, 40 applications or 45. So I put those in there, and then I asked it, oh, let's see here. I think I can still pull it up. Like, what activities do instructors want to use in their classes? What do they hope to achieve through this? What are their goals? And it will summarize for me. And it did a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but out of 12 pages of text, it did this. And that's nice. I mean, that starts giving me something that I can work with and start working through. So that's another tool. I want to show a couple of other things here. I've got the library site up. So, whoops. Oh, too many things going here. Bing Chat has a sidebar. I use this sidebar a lot, and I just keep it going while I'm working online. And see if I can find my, whoops, got the wrong browser now. Sorry, I've got too many windows up and I can't find where I'm at. Okay, are you seeing the public library site? That's what I want.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Here is the Bing sidebar. I can get the Bing sidebar up. I can chat with it. It gives me that same chat option that I had on the full Bing page. It has a writing tool. So I can ask it, what do you want to write about? I can tell it, I can say that I want to write it in a casual manner for an email, and I want it to be medium length, and then it will create a draft for me. The insights, what's nice about the insights is that it will read the pages that you're going to. So here I'm on the Lawrence Public Library site, and it's now summarizing. It's pulling up. Here is the, it's giving me the directions, the address. It's telling me the basics about the library, when it was established, the size. It's pulling up videos related to the library from YouTube. It's giving me photos, pulling different things about the library. So I could find all kinds of information. There's, showing me monthly traffic for the site, for the library site. Where's that traffic coming from? It's giving me a whole lot of information about just a website. So that again can be useful depending on if you're going to a site. Is this a useful site? Is this a trustworthy site? There's some information that the AI is going to pull up for you to try to give you some sense of what this is about. So again, I love this. I love having this available. I can just click it on and off while I'm working, and I will ask it all kinds of things while I'm working, and I can do it in terms of a question, and it will come back to me and provide me often answers that are useful. So I can go on, or I can say, okay, I want to dig deeper into that and do some more research about it.
We have one other question that I think is pretty interesting. Takes a little different tact. Can AI proofread or find citations for an original work?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not set up to do this, but yeah, I can put it in, I can put text in there and ask it to proofread it for me, to check my grammar. It's available in Microsoft already. That's there. You can turn on the grammar checker. You can turn on the spell checker. I mean, spell check is AI. You're going to be finding more and more things in any kind of Microsoft product. You're already seeing it. Microsoft, if you create a PowerPoint, Microsoft has had a button for a year or two now that says design ideas, and it will take what you've put into PowerPoint and it will give you 10 different design ways of creating design. And to redesign the page to make it look better. So yes, it will do all of that if you ask it to, and that's what you want it to do. I mean, it will summarize, it will spell check, it will fact check. You can ask it for more sources. You may or may not be happy with what you get in terms of sources. I wouldn't trust it. That's not the only source I would go to, but it kind of depends on what you're after. I want to go and show you what you can do here with visuals as well. Oh, come on. Why are you doing this? There we go. All right, I'm going to close that. I've got too many things going. All right, here's one. I had another one and I accidentally closed it. Maybe I can bring it back up. With written prompts, I can say, let's say, create a public library in the year 2080. We could say, I have no idea what I'm going to get out of this. Sometimes the things, I'll show you some examples in a minute. Why I like this one is that it runs several different engines at once. It runs several different things at once. This is what I'm getting from text prompts. Some of them are quite interesting. Some of them seem fairly basic. I don't know that seems, some of those don't really seem like the future. So I could go back. Let me see if I can pull this up. If it's still going to show my screen. Let's see if you're still seeing.
But you put in John Stewart Curry, although
yes, I did.
misspelled, and And so that's taking it back.
Yes, so that's trying to, and I'm trying to do that. I mean, I'm trying to make it, how can you do the future and the past at the same time? Sometimes that works well, and sometimes it doesn't. Let's see here.
Try
I can
Picasso.
bring up, yeah. Can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Here's one that I did, and I asked it, this is the Lawrence Public Library, and I put in the Lawrence Public Library site along with this. And I said, create a vision of the Lawrence Public Library, make it futuristic. And I'm not sure what else I did. And that's what one of them created. I mean, you can, when you know what Lawrence Public Library looks like, you can see the basis of it in there. Here is another version of that. I can see less of the Lawrence Public Library in that, but it's still sort of there. Here's one I asked it to do Massachusetts Street. This is probably better. This is probably more in the lines. Here I did John Stuart Curry again, but I said, show me Massachusetts Street, Lawrence, Kansas, around 1900 in the style of John Stuart Curry, make it a bird's eye view. That's what I got.
Okay, we're not seeing the PowerPoint. We're still at the futuristic library 8 pictures. So something's
Okay.
not showing through.
Let me try again.
It's sharing one of your other.
Yeah, I'm going to stop share. I'm going to try it again.
Okay.
See if that's showing. There we go. Now are you seeing it?
Yes,
That
that's
looks
Mass
like
Street.
that looks like Mass Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you can take create some really interesting things, and you just have to keep working at it sometimes. The first version that you get back may or may not be worthwhile. Let's see if I can show you. Do you see a bunch of robots? Now, this one I ask it to do, show me dozens of faculty members screaming as they run from a large lecture hall with double wooden doors. Behind them is a humanoid bot holding up papers. Well, what I got was a whole bunch of bots, running around. It took me a while before I got something that I thought was usable, which I put on a blog post. When you're using this, I don't understand why, because I've asked it to put text in sometimes. It doesn't know what to do with text in these kinds of visual engines, at least right now. So you can see the text is just gibberish. There's really nothing that makes any kind of sense. It's just there. And I don't understand why it's doing that particularly. But that's what it is. So there's pretty amazing things that can happen. And there's some things that are really bizarre. I want to show you one more thing, and then I'll stop, because I think this is another thing that can be useful to a lot of people. This is another Microsoft. I have no connection to any of these tools. I should have said that up front. I have no connection to any of these. We're a Microsoft campus, so I often have access to a lot of Microsoft things. So that's why I'm showing you this. This is something called Microsoft Designer. If I say I want to create a flyer for oops. All right. I'm just going to give it some text, and I'm going to ask it to generate something. And now it's giving me, okay. All right. So then maybe I'll start with this. And now I can, it gives you some options. I could generate it again if I wanted to. Let's say I'm going to pick that. Now I'm going to customize it, and it will pull me here. And now I can go in and I can say, Lawrence Public Library. I can add more text. I can change colors. That's one of the other things that I could have done. I could have given it a color at the beginning. I could do all kinds of things. So I mean, if you're not a designer and you want to make things look good, that's pretty easy. Now you can go in and with the tools that are available to you, I mean, there are different templates. You can add your own images if you want to. If I want to change the visuals, here are some other options that I could add that it's given for me. If I want to add different kinds of text, I can do that. If I want to change the color, I can change the color. I mean, in a minute, you could have a pretty good flyer that could go out and you could create it for social media. I tell you, the social media companies are just going bonkers about this because they can create so much content so quickly with AI. So I mean, that's kind of an overview of some of those tools. There are so many of these tools. There are just so many places now that are putting AI in their name or have been coming out very quickly with AI related tools. Some of them are good, some of them are not good, but they see an opportunity to make money from it. So they're putting things out there very quickly. And I try a lot of them that are free, and anything that I put on that handout that I gave you. Oh yeah, Jack said that everybody was going to read all of those articles and all of the books before you came to this session. I think that was a requirement. And he said that
There'll be a quiz.
Yeah, I beat you to it.
Yeah,
So-
you're right.
So what about some of the maybe less serious applications, like you're a grandparent and you want to get your 10-year-old granddaughter a gift of some hot toy that's out there you don't know anything about? I mean, does it work for that kind of thing?
Yeah. All right. So let's say I'm going to do a children's story about dinosaurs and koalas include grandparents who are astronauts. Let's see what we get.
Man,
You'll have to tell us because we're not on shared screen.
Oh,
now,
I'm
so-
sorry.
your screen.
That's all
I'm
right. No,
sorry.
no.
That's
We're
right.
all on the edge
All
of our
right.
chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So once upon a time in a far off planet, let me go back to share screen and you can read it.
Okay.
And I can share it with you later. There we go. Once upon a time in a far off planet, there lived a group of dinosaurs and koalas. These creatures had never met each other, and they had their own habitats on opposite sides of the planet. However, there was something magical about to happen. One day, a rocket landed on the planet, and out came two grandparents who were astronauts. They traveled from Earth to explore the planet and meet the creatures that live there. I mean, that could be a lot of fun with kids, right? I mean, it's.
Man.
There you go. I don't know, let's say who likes to play in the mud and who likes pink. What do we get? I have no idea. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, and I don't know whether I'm going to get what I'm going to get back. We'll see. There you go. The Mud Kitchen play set.
There you go. That's great.
Pink rain boots, pink garden tools.
I'm going to release Gary on you. He's kept quiet most of the evening, but he has his statement. Why is this cool? This is BF Skinner all over again. So I'll throw that out for you.
Go ahead, Gary.
There's also another question. As the tech gets better, how do we detect deep fakes?
Oh boy, if you've got that answer, please let me know. I think that is probably one of the scariest things about tech right now. Within the last couple of weeks, a group of computer scientists and others and researchers and academics came out with a letter saying that OpenAI should put a hold on its work and put a hold on any further, and everybody should there should be a global hold on development of AI. And I mean, the case that they make is very good. How are we going to know about deep fakes? I mean, we already got before 19, what was it, in 2016 with the presidential election. I mean, we had all kinds of fake things going around that influence. Now you can create video and make people put people's voices into things. There are you can create AI by putting text in, and I could put in a text and say, I want to put my image in in Barack Obama's doing Barack Obama's speech, and I could do that. So detecting that kind of thing is going to be harder and harder, and that's a problem. That's going to be a big thing that we're going to have to be working on, and that's something that I talk about with students and with faculty, that we have to be on guard constantly for that. It's there now, but I think the potential for proliferation and the ease of development of this makes that certainly a scary part of this. There's no doubt. I mean, the other thing is security. If somebody gets into this AI, and let's say that you turn over AI to the water company to monitor the water supply, and somebody gets a hold of the AI, or the AI suddenly gets in the wrong mood and starts shutting off water for no reason whatsoever. I mean, there are just all kinds of things like that. And what this group was saying is, we are in favor of AI. What we think we need to do is to talk more about the guardrails that we can put on it, and what can we do to get this right before it goes out into the world and changes things and does things that we're not going to be able to undo.
Okay, there's a really good question here for us novices. I want to try this. Is ChatGPT an app, or do I just type it into the search engine? How can one of us get some version of this onto our computer?
I would start with Bing Chat. That's going to be your easiest one. And I've got that linked there. If you go to Bing Chat or search for Bing Chat, it's in your browser. You don't have to download anything that I showed you. There is no need to download anything. What makes ChatGPT a little bit harder is that you have to create 2 different accounts. And then you have to have 2 different passwords. You have to sign in for one for OpenAI and another one for ChatGPT, and it gets a little bit complicated. I would do Bing Chat. You can go to Bing Chat right now. You don't have to sign in for anything. You can try any of this right now. And as I remember, Microsoft has made it open to everyone now. There's another one called Bard, which is from Google. It's not nearly as sophisticated as what ChatGPT and Google are now, or I'm sorry, and what Microsoft's Bing is, because Bing uses the same platform that ChatGPT does. It's exactly the same platform. So I would go to Microsoft Bing. You can search for Microsoft Bing or Microsoft Bing chatbot or something like that, and you'll find it. But I've got the link on that handout that I created. That's where I would start. If you want to do the text, I mean, some of the others, if you wanted to experiment with some of the image creation, what I liked about the one, I've got all of these on there that I've showed you. There's the one called Catbird that I like. It's very easy. You don't have to sign up for anything, and it gives you a lot of different options. It's doing a lot of them at the same time. So what these sites have done primarily is that they'll give you a certain number of images you can create every month free, and then they want you to pay for them. They reset every month, so you get a certain number of credits. And that's something I probably should have put on that handout. There's something called tokens. I really don't understand tokens myself. Other than a token, they go by tokens. And a token is in text version. It's like, I don't know, 2 words or something like that may be a token, or a handful of letters is a token. And then that's how they decide how much computer power that you've used is based on the tokens that you've used. So I don't even go there. You can get a certain number of credits every month with most of these, any of the tools that I put on there. And I put ChatGPT on there because it's the one that gets a lot of attention. As I said, it's a little bit more complicated to get into, but once you do, it's very easy to use.
Okay. I'll throw one more question from Gary is, what is KU doing to mark false AI statements?
I don't know. I mean, I know that there are, well, I'm not in every department. I know that in journalism classes, sure, we talk about it. I mean, we're talking about this a lot about what's reliable. I teach editing, and a lot of what I try to tell students is you have to learn to train yourself to see what's really there, not what you think you see. And it's the same thing everywhere. I know that they're doing that in comm studies. There's a big AI program on West Campus that's researching it. It's mostly computer sciences. But I mean, KU in general, I think it's a hard thing to say because there are so many different pockets all over campus, depending on the discipline. And I think in every discipline, they're doing this in a different way. Libraries are doing things on how can you spot fakes? How do you do this? I did a session at the libraries a few years ago called How to Create an Urban Legend. And I mean, it's not that hard. It's scarily, and this was before AI, but the things that are out there, the viral videos that are out there already, if you want to have some fun, look up liquid mountaineering. There's a video that, this is probably 10 years ago, that a shoe company put out about the ability to walk on water. It is brilliant. It is brilliant. And what they did is created a platform. They got these 2 dudes, which I think they are dudes. I mean, they just found them. They're not actors, in a mountain resort somewhere. And then they created this intricate platform just beneath the surface of the water. And then they set it up that, okay, look what happens when you start. This is something that you really got to practice at. And they start and they fall face down into the water. And then they let them walk on the platform. And it just is, it's amazing. I mean, and the way that they set it up, it's like, okay, we're going to skip a rock. Look, you can skip a rock. If the rock can go across the surface, why can't I walk on the surface? And so the fakes have been there all along. It's just, again, I think the volume of it, I mean, social media has increased the volume of it immensely. So what are we going to get with social media and artificial intelligence? I don't know. I think that's something that we have to keep talking about and have to keep our eyes out. There's no easy answers to any of that. This is not something that I can tell you, do steps 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to be able to spot the AI. It's just not there, or to spot the deep fake. And I think as places start, or rogue entities start trying to use the AI to bilk people out of money or to sway political elections and all kinds of things like that, it has a lot of potential for evil. So I'm going to go have Gary decide. Gary should know how to do all of that, right? I mean, if you're, I'm going to throw it to him. And I do think that there is that all of us have some kind of role in this, that we have to be talking to each other. And I mean, I'm vulnerable to this. I had a few weeks ago, there was this video that came up somewhere and I was watching it and it looked like a young Marjorie Taylor Greene on American Idol. I mean, it was so real. I was fooled by it. And my wife took it and she said, that doesn't seem right. So she looked it up, and sure enough, it was not Marjorie Taylor Greene, but somebody had taken and put Marjorie Taylor Greene's name on it. And it sure looked like it. And if you I wasn't even thinking, it was funny. I wasn't passing it along as fact. It was just funny. And so I get fooled by that too. We all do.
Are there sites like Snopes or whatever that you can kind of check things out on?
Snopes is one. There are sites, and ChatGPT has one as well, where you can put text into it and ask it, was this created by AI? And it will give you a reading on that. We have a tool now hooked up to our learning management system at KU that will provide that, but it's rudimentary, and you can't rely on it. It will give false positives, it will give false negatives, and it just gives you a percentage based on, here's what we think the percentage of that this might have been created by AI.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what they do. They're imperfect. And that's, I think, Sam Altman came out and said, yeah, we did a disservice in some ways to schools when we released this, because we should have been thinking in terms of ways of detecting this at the same time. And they did come out with a tool for helping detect AI, but it's not perfect. And it doesn't necessarily mean that something was created with AI, especially some of the writing. If it's the reason that we're able to do AI is that humans are predictable, that we use a common syntax, we use common phrases, we use a patterns of our speech that's very recognizable. And you take all of that, and then the machine learns to do that and gives it right back to you.
Okay, Doctor, one last thing, because we need to wrap it up for time. And I'll just ask this question if we can get a quick answer, because I think it's a good one. It's being touted for use in medicine. What are the pros and cons?
I've been seeing a lot of really cool things being done in medicine. I'm going to speak to the nursing school next month, so I haven't delved into it a lot. I think it has a lot of potential. Right now, the way they're using it is to read X-rays, to read other kinds of things like that. And what it does really well is to spot patterns and things, and that the human eye may not be able to see. So I think there's something that there's an opportunity. Is it perfect? No, but I think if you can use this for spotting problems in imaging, for looking for interactions in drugs that may be a problem. I mean, I think that's something for all of us, and I've done that too. I mean, you can put in the drugs that you're taking and say, what are the potential interactions in those, or what are the problems in taking these two medicines at the same time, some things like that. So I think there are benefits to it. I think the danger is if we become too reliant on it, that if we're just using it and taking it at face value and not doing the critical thinking that a human can do.
Like all things. So
like all
we're going
things.
to have to wrap it up. We're going to have to wrap it up. I'm afraid it's a subject we may want to come back to this, and or we'll look for the next level of AI, and we'll revisit it at that time. So I really want to thank you, Doctor, for the time you spent. I thought it was great. If people want to unmute and show them a little appreciation with some applause,
All right.
that would be great.
It was wonderful.
Okay.
Well,
And
thank you.
just before we wrap it up, just a reminder that next month